Welcome back, City Builders. Kodiak the Kodiak here. In today's video is going to be a short one as we only have 2 official updates from Colossal Order this week. We also had a patch that fixed some of the pretty glaring and major issues with the game. Before we get into it, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you can keep up to date on all the Cities Skylines 2 news, tips, and tricks. Without further ado, let's get started. So since I uploaded the last news update on Wednesday, there isn't that much this week, and Wednesday, when I uploaded it, they did have a new dev post talking about some of the issues that the newest patch fixed, as well as the things that they're looking to move towards. Now, this word of the week was actually written by Colossal Order's CEO herself, and it contained a lot of useful information. They stated, the first hotfix patch was quick to roll out to Steam last week, and this morning, the patch for Microsoft Store and Game Pass finally made it live. This was as of Wednesday. So as of Wednesday, if you were playing on Game Pass, you did finally get the newest patch for the game, and that same patch was the one that we got the previous week over on Steam. For those of you wondering why they don't roll out at the same time, it's because Microsoft Store and Game Pass have some extra hoops that developers have to kind of jump through and okays and checks that they have to do over on that platform, so they can't just rush out patches like they can on Steam. Over time, I expect this window to kind of just be the same, so updates and patches won't be hot fixes because they shouldn't have any emergency bugs in the next few months once they have the mod workshop out and to the public, because once you have the mod workshop out, you're going to want to make sure that that game version is the same across platforms in order for people to be able to actually use their mods. Now, granted, from the looks of Paradox mods, you will be able to download previous versions of mods, so that way it matches your game version. So don't worry, there shouldn't be any issues, or at least glaring ones based on your game version. But I expect this window to shorten pretty significantly as we get closer to the mod workshop being live, and as they fix all of these emergency bugs, like all of the level of detail and render distances that they then bring up later in the same paragraph. That first patch fixed a bunch of the rendering issues with the game, so that way when you're actually zooming out, some of the things like the Cims will actually render out as you zoom out, because before, no matter, as long as they were like rendered in, you were rendering in the entire model, which is not good for performance. So you probably saw a pretty significant, or at least somewhat of a performance increase. I was already getting over 60 FPS, so I'm not really too sure what kind of performance gains I necessarily got from this initial patch. And it was also last week for me on Steam, so I'm not even sure at this point. Speaking of LOD issues, one of the things that's been commonly plaguing a lot of us who've been playing Cities Skylines 2 and wanting to take pretty shots of our cities is this weird rendering bug, where if you zoom in and you look at a fence, everything just becomes super low texture and renders completely wrong. I don't know if City Planner Plays was the one that found this, but I learned this from Canadian Moose, and he said that he learned it from City Planner Plays. So I'm just gonna give a shout out to both of them for finding this. But if you go into your settings, if you hit escape, go to settings, and you go into the advanced tab and scroll all the way at the bottom of graphics, you'll find this MIP bias. Now, I think this is set to 0 by default, but if you set it to 2, and every time I start up the game, I have to set it to 1 and then back to 2 again. And then if you hit escape again and go back to your regular menu, and then let this circle load all the way to 100, and then go back into your game, I have yet to have that issue happen again. So every time I start my game up, I load into the map, and then I let that MIP bias kind of reload all the textures, and then boom, fixes the issue. So if that's something you've been experiencing, that's how you fix it. If that doesn't work for you, let me know in the comments so we can try to figure out other issues, or maybe if this is something that needs to go back to Colossal Order again. The CEO even made a little joke about how the characters' teeth are fully rendered. Now, something in-game I was testing was what aspect of the characters, or the Cims, actually created the most, like, performance hit. If you guys are interested, I did an entire video on the dev console and how you can actually improve your frame rate by up to 20 FPS. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll put that in the annotations up above right now and in the description down below. There's a ton of cool stuff that you can do in dev console. Just a forewarning though, you know, this could, in theory, corrupt saves, or, you know, just do a plethora of other things, because it is dev console, not consumer console, and it's not really intended for you to use this. But until we get mods, this is a really good way to do certain things with the game, like give yourself free resources on the ground, like ore and oil, which isn't something that I covered in the video, but is something you can do in the dev console, as well as a ton of other things like spawn in props, mess around with ground textures, as well as again, net yourself upwards of 20 plus FPS in high density areas. And the reason I bring this up right here is because of the mention of the teeth. I went in on my Twitch stream and was messing around and trying to figure out which aspect of the characters, because you can turn off different things like their hats, their hair, their skin, their teeth and eyes, all individually. And I wanted to see which one actually net me the biggest performance gain. And surprisingly enough, the teeth and the eyes were pretty negligible. I think it was maybe 1 to 2 FPS at most. I thought it would have been maybe the clothing or the hair, but no, the skin of the characters is your biggest performance hit. So if you're looking to still be able to see your Sims, but maybe get upwards of 10 FPS increase, turn the skin off on the characters and you'll still be able to see them walking around. They'll just be floating eyeballs and teeth. They also claim that they tweaked performances for depth of field, global illumination, and fog. Now these features will still give you a performance hit, but they won't give you as significant of a performance hit now. So if you wanted to start toggling and switching them on or off, you should be able to do that now. They also brought up that a few different types of assets need special attention, as well as on top of the performance work, that they're also looking into gameplay issues that we've reported on the Paradox forums. All right, this is about the halfway point in the video where I usually like to thank my Discord subscribers. So I want to give a huge shout out to Wheatbread and J15Wine and RKP, who are my highest tier patrons. So I want to thank you guys so much, as well as my other Discord subscriber, which are down below. And yeah, anyways, get back to the video. Make sure to drop a like, leave a nice comment, and do all that other cool stuff. Now, in the newest patch, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the video, they did fix all of the education issues. So if you were noticing that none of your Sims were going to high school and like a ton of Sims could go to college but weren't, that was fixed in the latest update. So they did address that in this article though, and that is something that they did end up fixing. They did also make some fixes to trading, which they addressed in this article, but they did fix that as well in the newest patch, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Finally, they addressed an issue with garbage, which I noticed in my city as well. So if you're noticing some weird discrepancies with like how much garbage everything is kind of accumulating in your city, they know about it, and they've already fixed everything else, so I expect that to be fixed maybe even in the next patch that will be slated to come out probably next week. They also stated that the performance improvements will benefit the development of console platforms, which is something that I've been talking about quite frequently. We won't see console until the game's optimized fully on PC, so I expect pretty significant performance gains before the console release, and we've already seen a couple that have pretty significantly improved performance, especially on higher resolutions like 4K. Now, that was everything that was addressed on Wednesday's update, but there was also a actual patch that went live on Steam on Thursday. At the time of recording, I have no idea if this is live on Game Pass, but if we look at the time frame that it took for them to actually get it approved for the Microsoft Store, expect 5 days roughly from when this post was made, which was on Thursday. So maybe by Sunday or Monday, it should be available for the public over on Microsoft or Game Pass. But this is currently live on Steam, and it did fix a lot of things that I have noticed in my city as well. Now, I didn't really notice too much of a performance increase, but my city's also pretty far along at this point, so I don't know if earlier cities see more significant performance increase after this patch. Let me know down in the comments down below if you noticed any of these things in your city, or if you don't think any of them are happening. They did note, with existing save games, most simulation fixes will require the simulation or the game to run for a while to take effect. That might be why I haven't noticed some of these actually happening in my city. The last time I played it since this patch, I was noticing that I was doing a little bit more detailing than I was running the simulation. So I might just not be able to actually see the actual patch kind of go into effect. But there were some things I noticed, and let's go through each one. They increased leisure probability to balance the no customer situation with commercial companies. This is something that I kind of noticed in my city. I'm getting a lot less no customers, which is a good thing. One thing I did notice though is that I'm still getting them, and you should probably think about how much commercial you're zoning and how many customers are near that. Remember, your demand meter at the bottom, even if it's full of commercial, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to zone that. It's more that it will build the business, not that your city actually needs it. Also, location is really important with commercial. I could zone it in an area that has a ton of commercial and it might not get a lot of customers, but if I zone it closer to residential, it will get a lot more customers that way. And so certain areas might actually be the ones that need your commercial. They improve some balances of companies' profits. They turn down companies ordering input resources when their storages don't have enough space. There was quite a few issues with the actual economy simulation and how things were being transferred to and from places that got fixed in this update. They fixed trade resource bug preventing some resources from being consumed. They fixed a mixed calculation in college and university eligibility count, which is something that I visually noticed the first time I updated my game and opened it after this patch. Immediately noticed that the college bar was completely fixed. So if you were noticing issues with your education, go in and actually look. It should actually properly update over time. Improve conditions for companies to move away when bankrupt. Not really sure too much what that one is. Fix a dependency error with land value causing potential instability. I'm still kind of getting a lot of high rent. I don't know if that's because I don't have enough low density or I don't have enough low rent housing or what the issue is. I know land value can affect that though, so maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not really too sure, but something to keep in mind. If you guys know what that one is, please let me know in the comments. Fixed an issue where loading a new map would cause water state to get out of sync with save data. Never noticed that one. Slightly increased Windows emission intensity. I have no idea what that one is as well. Optimization for area lights, which is always good. More optimization for visuals will get us better performance. Prefer rendering small objects after large ones when possible to improve GPU performance in some cases. Improved shadow LOD calculations and to cull irrelevant shadow casters earlier. Shadows are usually a pretty big rendering draw for your system, so that's always good. Reduce situations where trees and alpha clipped objects would lead to virtual texture space running out. For those of you who don't know, when you make a cut in the actual terrain, so when you use the cut and fill tool and you make a cut, so like the road actually creates retaining walls on the side, that ground is actually still there over top of it. And it's essentially just a clipping mask, so you're seeing through the texture. That's why if you go into like camera mode and you kind of like go down into that road, it'll like start clipping and get really weird. It's because that terrain's actually still there and they basically just put a texture over it that makes it see-through. Fixed a citizens hanging around in park areas on a regular building lot, never getting inside the building. Decreased resolution of unnecessarily large character textures. That I'm assuming is one of the optimization steps towards maybe getting the Cims to look a little bit or to perform a little bit better. I'm not really too sure. Remove spasm radio ad due to offensive content. That totally makes sense. I won't get into detail of that because I don't want to get demonetized, but I think that is probably for the best. And added missing location ID for Paradox account linking. So if you had that issue, that is also now fixed. So it's a pretty significant patch, and it does seem like they plan on probably doing one maybe once a week until they get stuff fixed, or maybe even once every 2 weeks with some pretty significant changes in each one. Now, I think that's pretty much it from the news side of things this week. A little bit lighter, especially since I uploaded my video on Wednesday. We did kind of include some of the later stuff from the previous week into the last video. So next week, well, I'm assuming there might be a little bit more news, but again, a lighter one this week. I hope these updates actually improved your performance on your game and improved your simulation. I'm definitely still trying to figure out which simulation changes actually changed. I can tell that certain things are being zoned in differently as well, so that's always good news. Now, if you made it this far, please let me know down in the comments if there's any kind of tutorials, tips, or tricks that you guys need or want to see. We did one on the dev console this past week, which you can actually use for Game Pass or for Steam. I didn't think that you could actually do it on Game Pass, but somebody did post in the comments how to do it, so you guys can look at the pinned message, and that's how you activate it on Game Pass, and I go over how to activate it on Steam, and again, it can net you upwards of 20 FPS, as well as adding things like props to the game, changing your climate, and a ton of other stuff, so please make sure you guys go give that video a look. Anyways, let me know what you guys want to see down in the comments down below. If you guys want to see Let's Build series, more tips, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.